Thank you for coming along, and I'm going to go through quite a lot today. So I'm going to talk a little bit quick and go through quite a lot of points. Now, this is mostly about information about the current climate and the shift and the way people manage information and data. So customer relations in the post-COVID world, how to maximize your ROI on human relationships. So basically, we're in a bit of a shift, and hopefully there we go. If you didn't already know it, we're in the digital age. Surprise. Now, most people have a phone. Average time spent on social media is 2 hours and 16 minutes a day, but we've never been more connected or alone. So, we've got a much more global reach. We've got the ability to have a global workforce and have global customers. In fact, some of the people on the call today are from the US and the UK. So, and also let's not forget Croatia, and I'm sure some others. So it's quite an interesting space and an interesting time we find ourselves in, because now we're getting this flood of information. Now, this photo I've chosen specifically because she's an Australian. Her name is Supercar Blondie. She is a Instagram brand manager, and she promotes sports cars or supercars in Dubai and in America. So she'll go to car shows around the world and create, these little short videos and basically demo the car. But these are new trade crafts, new industries, new businesses that are coming up out of nowhere. And it's no secret that, COVID's had a massive effect on the way that people use online space. And in particular, from a business perspective, we can see that, even around 2018, there was a bit of a growth, and 2019 in the use of Microsoft Teams, bearing in mind that it's only fairly new. It was only introduced just before 2017. But by comparison, we can see similar time frame. We've got now 80 million. We've got 80 million users on Teams by 2020, and then we've also got 300 million on Zoom, which we're at now, by the same time frame. So some other perspectives on the global market is that we're taking our global, local, or global. We've got a need to operate across a much larger area. We have more exposure to global issues now that we've got global customers and global partners and global suppliers, more so than we've ever had before. There's a much greater need to be able to deal with those issues, which I'll go into a little bit more in detail. Greater need for personalized experiences too, because now we've gone away from this, one-to-one serious interaction to a lot of very low light touch interactions. And the increased volume that we have to speak with people means that we have a lower quality every time. So people still expect that they're going to have a very personalized services. And now we need to intermingle extra dimensions, such as dealing with culture, dealing with costs, and managing access to internet. Now that I'm working with other people in other countries, I'm experiencing issues. For example, in their currency, it's a lot more expensive to buy something like a Mac or a IBM computer that's super fast, that can do the work of someone like me. So perhaps maybe they don't have the resources, or they don't have the internet speed, or quite often you'll hear a rooster in the background or some traffic, because they don't have noise suppressing mics, they don't have lighting, etc. So you need to become a little bit more globally aware and sensitive to these issues. As with the people side, we also have global risks in dealing with these other businesses. So we're not only talking about the flight zones over Russia that are now blocked. We're not only dealing with blocked shipping lanes, the Suez Canal issue, material shortages. So we now can't get certain things because, for example, the gas shortage in Russia, gas shortage for the rest of the world, because Russia has stopped contributing to the global market. A massive increase in freight costs. So building companies that were starting with contract agreed values at the start of a build cycle, 6 to 12 months later, are now facing, roof trusses coming at 4, 5, 10, 30 times the cost. So that erodes profitability. Now we've got, skills shortages as well. More people are tending to try to be Instagram brand reps, and less are trying to be mechanics and hairdressers and those trade type of industries. So we're seeing a massive shift. And, you think I'm here in my little local village, nothing's going to affect me. But think of this, the average pair of jeans is sourced from about 15 countries. We're talking the ink is made in one country. It is then packaged into the ink packs in another. It is then put in a machine that's built in another country. And even the copper that goes into the zip and the clasps and the buttons is mined in, some North African country, forged in China, and then, assembled in Nicaragua or something like that. Then we've got the warehouse chain where it then goes into perhaps a global distribution center from US, the company that ordered the manufacture of these goods, then into Australia, Canada, UK, etc. And all of these are being affected at every layer. And because we are so intertwined and interwoven, there is massive risks in, just even the smallest componentry being affected. Critical shortages, for example, microchips. Taiwan's supposedly the best superconductor and microchip area, but yeah, they're under threat from China. The Suez Canal blockage blocked not only itself, but hundreds of ships behind it, which then delayed a number of things, including a fuel additive, which once that fuel additive goes to the refinery plant, then it becomes normal fuel that you can pump into a vehicle. But that additive delayed and massively increased the cost of fuel because it was held up by a couple of days. So understanding the fragility in the supply chain is really, really, and of course the Russian gas and the COVID restrictions in terms of ships entering port, all of those ships that were out at sea had to have greater levels of security because of the risk of piracy out around North Africa. More medical boats need to go out to supply unexpected, medical treatments. Food and supplies needed to go out in order to feed them because they were sitting there for a week longer than anticipated. All of these little things have a massive knock-on effect. Global shifts in skills. Now, I know that everyone's aware of economics and things always flow to the lowest spot, but there is also a shift in the way, some countries are improving and some are detracting, moving away through different skills. So a lot of people are moving to those digital online skills or trying to, do those Instagram brand reps, and significantly less in the trades. However, those trade or the engineering skills are flowing down to those lowest areas where the cost is significantly less. This is an older chart, but you can see that the shifts are moving around between different countries, and some are in growth and some are in. And as globalization increases, the more countries that you're able to interact with, either from a customer or supplier perspective, now we've got greater language barriers, greater legal and regulatory frameworks that we have to deal with, tax, privacy laws, all of these layers just stacking up on top of each other, making it really difficult. And not to sort of finish there, we've now got all the geopolitical changes. With one stroke of a pen, no longer can anyone do business with Russia. Now there is obviously the Ukraine invasion. There are, and I don't know if anyone's aware, but there have been 5 military coups in the last 3 years. That is where a military aims to take over its government. If you had said to me 3 years ago that there's going to be a coup, I wouldn't have believed it, because we've had such a good last sort of 50, 60 years, not since, I guess, the Russian missile crisis. I mean, there's been some other things in there, but terrorism is now no longer the greatest threat. People are now looking to large governments making big moves. And China now with the second largest economy, arguably the first, with some funny calculations on wage growths. And they also now have the largest navy, rolling out recently a new aircraft carrier. And we think we're done there. We're now dealing with natural disasters, such as the floods that occurred in Queensland and New South Wales. COVID lockdowns and isolations go on. Global staff, having people all over the world, meaning now you have to look and pay attention to what's going on in all of these other places where your team are, where your customers are, where your partners are, where your suppliers are, because they are getting affected as well. And with all of this and all of the human management that's involved, we've got a flood of information. And this is just in the business perspective, because in the human side, on the individual, they're facing the same thing. So we're looking at it from a business perspective as the company. Now we're looking at it from the individual perspective. They've got, as you can see, all the social profiles that they're monitoring, all of the spam and the emails that they've been bombarded with. They're trying to deal with a flood of information themselves. And it's very different when you're trying to ask an employee that if their approach to your work is going to be the same, because they're already bombarded. So we need to try and deal with the human side because they're the ones engaged, they're the ones doing the work. But there's constant battle for their attention, using the gamification, spending hours trying to game the system, but who's the real winner? If you stop posting, you start losing. Identifying who the master is a little bit tricky. Using gamified things, you can use gamified things on the positive side to form a habit, to grow a business, to hit metrics and targets. But there's all the other ones as well. Every time I answer a notification, I get an endorphin, or someone gives me a thumbs up or a like, I get that serotonin release. So, star ratings are actually being used now in China, if anyone's not aware, to give them a social rating. So they're giving like an Uber style 5-star, 4-star, etc. And that then affects your access to things like welfare, medicine, food, travel ability, access to, various incentives. So they're kind of incentivizing good behavior, but that doesn't really take into consideration the human condition. The fact that someone can be down on their luck and then all of a sudden everything is shut off to them, and it makes it 10 times worse. So there are lots of distracting things and lots of things that require our attention. And the system's rigged. We need to think about things just a little bit differently. There is the bad side as well to social media. Lots of fakes. How do we know what's real? News that's constantly in our face, telling us various versions of things. Who do you believe? Fake news, etc. Even the so-called prime correct ones, are being questioned or called into question constantly. And the ugly side, fraud, theft. And in terms of cyber attacks, there is one cyber attack reported every 7 minutes. However, one happens every 39 seconds. So there is a lot occurring that is not being reported. Once upon a time, you could kind of pretend that it was all just over there. But that bush, that jungle, that cover is starting to decline and decline and decline. So now we need to think about digital skills. We can't delay learning any further. People don't try new things. They're not experimenting. It's okay to stuff something up on a small scale, test with a little. People, the problem is not going away. And in terms of deeper connection, we need to build and manage huge amounts of information, but still have it personalized based on whether someone is a customer, a partner, a supplier, any of those things. We need to really take it to the next level. And if you don't, you're quickly going to become irrelevant. And to back this up further with a bit more evidence, this is the statistics on population growth and change in Australia. Over the next 50, 60 years, we're going to see a growth in population. We're already up to 26 million from 23, probably about 10 years ago. And we now have a declining or a stagnant workforce. So elderly and underage are growing, but the workforce is relatively unchanged. So that means that 16 million have to work for the 26 million. That grey strip in the middle is the working population, and then youth, and then aged. So understanding that the fact that there is something coming in the pipeline that we have to deal with now. So if anything, this is more take action. And that requires a change in behavior. We've already started to see that digital natives, which are people who are born in the technology era, don't know any different. They don't know any kind of other way. So you need to engage with them on their level. The average buying manager or procurement manager is 44. That means they are used to buying on Netflix, on Amazon, on eBay, and they expect that B2B experience to be just like that. They expect, self-service portals. They don't want to wait an hour on the phone, and they want to be able to connect with someone or get information yesterday. So what are we actually striving for? 10 years ago, IT was really focused on driving efficiency, about shutting things out, about stopping people from connecting with you. You had all of the FAQ articles were designed so that someone didn't call the call center. The phone tree was difficult to find, so it drove you to the self-help article. And by the time you got someone, you had to go through the whole process with them, and it took ages. That was the goal, because everyone was focused on cost management. 5 years ago, it was about customer service, because they realized that they were losing customers, and they wanted to try and get their business back on track. And so the only way that they could do that was say, and this is all big corporates as a collective, the only way that they could do that was to go, yeah, we need to be the first one to answer the call. That's the metric that is going to get us the customer. But the problem with that is that it's often at the expense of the back end. And so now the experience is a very much, right, we signed you up and good luck to you. So that didn't really sort of gel well with the customers. So now reviews are so very heavily dependent on now, it's not funny. And it's about whole of life experience with that customer. So today, the complete experience really, really matters. And everyone in the company needs to be able to provide amazing experience, needs to know where the customer is at, granted, there is some, room for error, but you need to be able to know what's going on to an extent with that customer. And internal communication needs to be seamless. So balancing of self-service and personal service, whilst you are still providing those tools to allow them to self-serve, to get that answer at 2 a.m. when they know the business is shut, but also providing the human side, the connectedness, and that's where the magic really happens. So I'd like to give an example of a steel company. So this particular company, they had a server rack that looked pretty much like that. And they had these tubs of paperwork, which about my height, 6 times over. And in these tubs were invoices yet to be entered, to be sent to the customer. So we're talking about a company that over COVID is in this steel company, and in this property boom in Brisbane has grown virtually 100% from 16 million to 24 and from 70 staff to 120. So the growth that they've gone through, it's surprised that they're still around. They got rejected from a buyout offer because their systems were such in a state of disarray. So you've got 4 directors that can't retire for goodness knows how long. They can't dispose of the company without theoretically selling off the assets and winding up. They've wasted time spending, day to day, just trying to get the next customer. They're spending on the wrong leads because either they're not clearing them properly or they've got 2 salespeople reaching out to the same person. And the person in the middle is a bit confused about what to do and where to go next. It takes 10 minutes for anyone to do anything in the system because the server takes forever to log in. All the software is super slow. And that invoicing delay is about 6 weeks. So think about this steel company that's doing stuff for housing developments, has millions and millions of dollars stacked, my height, 6 times over in the reception center. What happens if there's a fire? What happens if there's a mistake and something, they're manually entering it and the 1 goes or the 0 goes in the wrong spot or the decimal goes in the wrong spot? There's a huge amount of risk and loss. And of course, it's prone to human error. So what you've always got to be thinking is disruption is around the corner. Kodak even invented the very product that disrupted them. They invented the digital camera and their team went, nah, we're making too much money off traditional film. Let's just forget about it. Someone else brought it into the market. Sony took it forever. And hey, we all know where that ended up. Now we've got below here is the mechanical calculator. It's a really bad sign when the engineers are using a digital calculator to calibrate the mechanical one. So not only did they have disruption under their noses whilst they're running the business, they pretty much ran it to a close within a few short months. Okay, so everything requires relationships. Whether you're getting customers, whether you're getting staff, whether you're building a skyscraper or going to the moon. 76% of businesses say it's absolutely critical or very important to interact with a salesperson who's a trusted advisor. People don't need to be convinced anymore. They've got Google reviews, they've got product video demos, testimonials. They want to be able to see it before they touch it. And then when they come over to you, they really just want that confidence that they're making the right decision. So you need to build the relationships or even sometimes have those relationships to show them these products and help them to find other testimonials or other people that have used this product or service. Now, the answer in some respects is technology. This is what's going to enable the volume of relationships that you now have to handle from every angle of your business, not just from the customer side, but from the supplier, from the employee, partners, etc. So it's important to track and manage information and handle, you need to be able to automate and handle large volumes of data. We need to create triggers and identify trends in data to be able to have the value. But that doesn't mean, before I get into that, the biggest thing holding people back from change is not necessarily, we've got here the board of directors, but the second one there is no one. So no one's actually stopping you. Quite often it's just a stigma or a pause or I'm not ready yet, or we'll get to it. But as you can see, I hope you see a little bit of urgency here and that within a few short years, it's just going to be no competition between big business and small. You're not going to exist. So we want to try and create an environment where everyone's empowered to be able to build an asset for themselves instead of, being like BuzzFeed, who relied on Facebook and then they tweaked a setting and they're gone overnight. Or, even the Australian media, they tweaked the setting and the Australian media on Facebook is gone overnight. So, for example, on the technology side, you don't have to be a coder. Coding has come a long way, but, not everyone needs to know how to code. In fact, it's not mainstream. And Microsoft say that by 2025, there's going to be a shortage of 5 million developers. So getting someone to do something super complex is not really going to be possible. So I really encourage you, if you're going to look in this space, that you're looking at low code or no code tools where you can click and drag and build. The idea is to understand that technology is important, understand the business process, understand that you can do something yourself and try to learn those skills so you're not reliant on anyone else. Developers now are getting poached for double. They're being offered double their salary to go somewhere else. Foreign developers that were, offshore, low-cost areas like we're talking about with globalization, they're now asking Western salaries. They're asking 80 grand a year, where once upon a time they're asking for $7 an hour. So they're now asking for 50 to 100 US dollars an hour to do coding and development upwards. So it's a different market altogether. So that might put you in a bit of shock, and apologies for doing so, but you all filled out a form to get here. You all filled out some information. You all got the first name, last name, the email address at the very minimum to be able to get into this. If you think about it, it's just like a process. It's just a manufacturing process. You've got to take a recipe. I'm going to grab a first name, a last name, and an email. Then I'm going to use that in a calendar invite. That is something that you can do very simply without having to overcomplicate the world in terms of the technology that's around you. You just need to think about having a good architecture though, because this is not the image map or also the app map of the client I'm about to talk about. But we had a client with 26 applications, all stuck together with, it was an accounting firm with 30 staff. They had loads of middleware and connections are constantly breaking. They're managing, each person had about 5 to 10 logins just to do the everyday of the business. And the access control was a nightmare. The security was a problem because someone had used the same password across all 8 applications. And in fact, sometimes in many cases, they're writing them down on the whiteboard so that anyone else walking past can see them. Data manipulation because one system likes it this way and the other one likes it that way. And training became an absolute nightmare. So a cloud, if anyone thinks the cloud is actually up there, it's not. It's just a computer somewhere else. It's really actually quite boring. So if you think about the whole architecture as you've got a data center, then you've got a server. So that's just a room somewhere else with a computer in it that's always on and someone else is maintaining it. It's a bit bigger than usual. Then you've got that platform as a service, which is where you probably want to start thinking about playing. So that platform allows you to build new things. And then that SaaS layer, which is all the shiny apps that people buy off the shelf. Things like Xero, things like Asana, things like Trello. They're good, don't get me wrong, but they only solve one problem. They don't solve the entire uniqueness of your business, fitting the DNA of your business. So one thing we want to get to is this nirvana, this idea of a connected customer experience, understanding everything from not only customer, I would say human 360. So understanding the partners, the employees, anyone you have an interaction with, the stakeholders that, could be influencing the shareholder or whatever in relation to your business. So having a single source of truth is really important so that you can have that deep human relationship across everyone in the company, not just one person. Understanding the rules and permissions so you can affect your management rule of law upon the company. Having data validation so it's good data, not just crap. And then using automation. Now, there are 8,000 plus CRM products on the market, and I'm only talking CRM here. You could be talking about manufacturing tools. You could be talking about human resources platforms. This is the one that I could show you that has the logos you can actually see. This one, however, has got 3,647 marketing technology products. So that's only a third of what's actually out there. So you need to think about a system that you can build. Now, this is a workflow, low-code platform. What it is doesn't matter. But what I'm saying is you need to be able to learn how these things go together, whether you do it yourself or whether you get someone else to. But understanding how you apply it in your business, developing those custom and unique journeys for your customer, because When you sell a widget and you fit in that box, great, but you don't stand out. You're not competition. You're not providing any real competition. If I'm selling umbrellas or like sunshades, and then all of a sudden I decide I'm going to get into the banana smoothie market. If you're on a beach and you're selling an umbrella and a banana smoothie, that's a really good combination. And you could stand out from the other umbrella vendors and from the banana smoothie vendors. However, you can't do that because one is a food service production business that requires ingredients with timelines and needs to be there and available. And the other one is just an inventory and product business. So the two have some different elements, but bringing those together can actually create an amazing experience. Internal communication is key. Many businesses do this so poorly. 70% of customers expect a seamless handoff between staff. That's a lot. And so few businesses do it. 60% of sales professionals say collaborating within the sales team makes them 25% more efficient. And 73% say collaborating across departments is absolutely critical for the overall sales performance. So, being able to actually know that you can promise that product or that service. So it's not an easy job. No, I'm not trying to paint it as super difficult, and I'm not trying to paint it as super easy. What I'm saying is it's a journey, it's a roadmap, it's a goal that is forever unattainable, but should always be persevered. It is like fitness. If you stop trying, you're in decline. If you keep going, you're in increase. So we need to build better capability to go faster. We need to constantly be tweaking and adjusting to fit the market and the expectations. We need to be able to access information from anywhere because people want it yesterday, and work from home has never been more important. Faster response times, going towards the primary goal. So we often talk about ends goals and means goals. So the ends goal is, absolute perfection, and the means goals is do the little things every day that improve, collect the more information, build those good habits. So few things not to do. Don't bury your head in the sand. Don't chase the latest shiny app. If it wiggles nice and clicks good, that's not a good reason to choose it. Mass email is slowly dying. People don't like it. It's been happening out the wazoo. Make sure you are wanted, and where you can, segment to the thing that person is interested in. Don't buy lists. People don't really like being emailed out of the blue. And the laws are really strengthening in that area, particularly with global clients. Having people on the list, if they're in the UK, you're now bound by GDPR. Having people in the list in California, now bound by the California Data Act. So don't do marketing that feels like marketing. Make it human, be connected, provide value. Don't rely solely on Google ads and Facebook ads, because you're buying your customers, and the price of those customers will go up over time. You need to build your own environment, your own marketing, your own connection with your own customers. That way you can add with ads, yes, but you are not reliant purely on Facebook or Google. And don't rely on intuition. If it feels good, that's great, but you only got a small sample bias. You really need to rely on data and the overall picture. So here's some things that you can do. Do personalize your outreach. If you're going to send an email template, take a moment to add to it. Go, hey, it was great chatting with you last week. I hope your holiday went well. Do allow self-service. Whilst it seems like you're backing away from the customer service, you're not. You're providing additional value and allowing someone to help themselves in their own time. Do respond quickly. People still do want those fast interactions, so don't avoid doing that at all. And ideally, the more you've got the operations side handled, the more you can handle the front end. Do build partnerships. Now we're finding that those digital natives don't actually like standard marketing. They scroll through and they do not care about ads whatsoever. They won't even give it a second's notice. So large companies on the enterprise sort of scale, for example, Qantas, are now partnering with companies like Airbnb. As soon as you've booked your flight, you are now getting an invitation to book with Airbnb. I was standing in Commonwealth Bank today, and a thing in front of me said, get 30% off NBN. Now, I don't know what a bank has to do with an NBN provider, but they have a partnership, and your customers and their customers, they're trying to bring them together. Do involve the customer. Ask them how they want to be interacted with, and then respect that, because people now are operating on multi-channel. If they want to work through WhatsApp, then do that. If they want to work through email, then do that. If they want to do text message, well, you're going to have to do that. And do take it offline. So make sure you interact with them in a human way, in a connected way. For example, sending out a nice handwritten card could be very, very good. So, and again, make it human, not salesy. So If you want to know what's next, again, this is not really a pitch. This is really supposed to be helpful. I do have some courses on some digital skills, some productivity tips, which you can go to academy.relevate.com.au. But otherwise, thank you for listening. If you want to book a meeting with me, that's my meeting link there. Really appreciate you sitting in and having a listen.